Hi guys, looks like we're live. I have no visual indication of this, so that is bad UX to start off. I'm Lana. I'm a product designer currently working at a startup in Portugal, in Lisbon. And I will be talking today about why switching careers to UI and UX is a good idea. So thanks Brainster for having me and enjoy the show. So as you can see on this first slide, I've put Trump here in the background. You might be asking why. So the idea of the presentation is for you guys to actually have something tangible at the end of this and not talk around like Donald Trump, who talks a lot and doesn't say much. So I'll first start off with my background and why I switched to this profession. I'm currently working as a product designer, but my initial role was web design. I worked later as UI and UX designer, so I've gone through a lot of the different titles. And then I'll talk a bit about how to get there, and I'll give you an example of how you could create a portfolio or something that would allow you to sell yourself on the market. So the first step is, as I said, why I switched careers and why you might need to too. So this is me. This is me all green and just come out of university. I had finished architecture, and I thought architecture was the center of the world. This was the only thing I was interested in at that time. And while I was working, I meant like studying. What I wanted to say is while I was studying, I wasn't working, which was a pretty bad idea from my side. I would recommend working while studying just a bit to get a bit of a feel of it. So when I was studying, I sort of thought that this is how our career path would go. So you jump in as a junior, you go in to sort of develop and learn a bit and become a media or a senior, and then eventually get to management or maybe even become a VP, which is what we call, is what is in IT called a vice president. So my expectations were as follows. So I was really into Japanese architecture, obviously, as every young architect was in my generation. These are some interesting buildings that would have been examples for me at that time. But what I didn't realize is that architecture wasn't really that in Serbia, where I was at the moment, but more something like this. So Serbian architecture and generally the architecture scene there was quite hard to get into. You would get unpaid internships. You wouldn't be officially employed, and just the whole experience of it was quite challenging. So what I didn't realize at the moment is that I was actually at the start of my career. So here you can see, this is from Tim Urban's career path text on his blog, Wait But Why. This is a really, really cool text about careers. I would recommend reading it. But what he means here is that the career path is actually quite long and full of pivots. So young Lana really didn't realize that the start of the career wasn't gonna really 100% define what you would be doing right before retirement. So what I failed to recognize at that point was to really grasp the idea of the world being open to you. Like, knowledge is everywhere. You can use the internet to learn new skills, and that you don't really have to do what you were schooled to do, and that what you were schooled to do is also a bit wider than what you think it is. So architecture isn't necessarily just architecture. I learned a whole methodology around working I sort of created a work ethic. I realized how to analyze problems, like how to start from beginning, like a concept, sort of iterate on ideas, and at the end, create final products. I didn't realize that this was going to be the base for my career now. But what I'm saying is that you need to have in mind that a career path is not something that you choose on right here at the start. So it's not like I'm either going to go this way or I'm going to go that way. It's pretty much small choices that you make every day, every month, every year. So I might go in this direction a bit. I might go in this direction a bit at work, or a friend might give you some new ideas what to work on. Even if you're at work, your position might entail a subset of different skills and things that you need to do during the day. And just picking and choosing what you're gonna put more focus on also defines your career path. Not to talk about, just changing positions within the same company, or actually asking for different tasks. So the first step that I took and that I would recommend is to analyze your current situation. So this is otherwise known as the what. So you sort of need to take a good, long, hard think about what you know now, what you want to know, what you're interested in. And then the next step would obviously be to sort of break that thing down and to understand how you're going to get there. So when you're analyzing the what, it's really good to sort of get some feedback from people around you. I found that the way that people perceive me in my innermost circles and in my even outermost circles is more of a telltale about sort of my traits and what I project and how other people feel about me, rather than how I feel about myself. So I might think that I'm not good at something, but other people would show me otherwise. And sort of when you compare yourself with a larger subset of people, you can sort of position yourself on the market. So what I've drawn here is what I'm calling the Venn diagram of an ideal career. So this is what I thought, this is what I think that is tangible to sort of make this choice. I was looking at what I'm good at and what I enjoy, which is not obviously necessarily connected to your career. So what I'm good at might be something that I've learned. It might be something that I was educated for. And what I enjoy might be a totally different thing. The second circle is what is sought after in today's market. So let's be real here. You have to position yourself in the market. The market exists based on economics, based on politics, based on technology, like everything. I'm talking about the job market. So it also depends on region. So the region really defines what set of career paths you can take. I learned that also in Serbia. Sort of felt that architecture wasn't at the place where I wanted it to be in order for me to sort of grow there and invest in this. And the third circle is obviously skills that are future-proof. So what I said here, it's like this is a tough one. This is a tough one. So how do you define a future-proof skill, and how do you invest in it? It will take some analytical skills and sort of feeling of where things are progressing, like general global economy, what new technologies are arising, and what your sort of what your contribution to all of this is. So the Venn diagram of the ideal career depends on which of these circles have overlapped, how they're overlapping, and in order for you to make sort of a choice of your career. So if you choose something that you're good at or you enjoy, and something that's future-proof but isn't sought after, this is not bad, but it's not ideal. So obviously you won't get the money that you want, or you might not get the job in the company that you want to work for, or maybe people aren't just interested in what you have to offer because that's just what the market is today. And then what you're good at, and what is sought after, but that is not a skill that is future-proof, might end up being just you working for 5 to 10 years and then having to make a major career change and pivot, which is something that I, for example, want to avoid. I don't know about you guys. So this part here, we want to avoid this totally. This is the danger zone. I'm calling this the danger zone because it excludes what you're good at or what you enjoy. So it's nice to work in something that you enjoy, so your day-to-day is actually enjoyable. What we want to hit is this sweet spot, so have a combination of the three. And what I'm saying is that I think that currently a career in UX design or product design is what I'm calling here the sweet spot. So let's sort of break these things down. What I'm good at and what I enjoy. What does this mean? So take a good, long, and hard look at your hard and soft skills. What I mean by these is hard skills are sort of things that you have learned. That might be a program you've learned. That might be, knowing how to draft in architecture. That might be knowing how to do accounting or marketing or whatever you're into now, economics. But the soft skills is really what you want to focus on. So soft skills are really the thing that define you, in my opinion. So we recently had a huge cut at my company because we're obviously a startup. We've had Series C funding. We've had we got like maybe 90 million last September, and someone would say, oh my God, 90 million, that's so much money. But actually we had to cut like a third of the people that were working in the company a month ago. No one really expected this, and it ended up being us obviously not having enough money to be sustainable on the long term. But what I'm saying is that I think that these soft skills are actually the things that kept me there. So the fact that my communication is good and I have a few other skills that I realized were of key importance here. So what I'm saying is that you need to play to your soft skills. So what are you good at? Are you good at communication? Do you maybe know a language really well? Are your habits really good? Do you have like fantastic work ethic? Are you good at empathy? Is your time management good? So these are things that really define you as a person, as your friends might know you. So if you're the playful person, if you're the serious person, if you're the one that always organizes things, this is something that you really need to pay attention to and sort of listen to yourself. And obviously, going back to the previous slides, listen to other people as well. Don't listen to your parents. They might not be that objective. So the second thing I want to focus on here are childhood hobbies or interests. I found that things that sort of were interesting to me when I was a kid have sort of boomeranged back around to me right now. So it seems that during university and maybe even a part of high school, I sort of ignored these things and sort of got into different hobbies. Maybe it was just peer pressure, maybe it was the circles that I was around. But I feel that now it's sort of like all come back into a full circle, and that I'm now like in sync with myself. But yeah, knowing what you were into as a child could really help give you a direction. So the third thing that we were talking about is what is sought after in today's market. So obviously I'm talking about UX design, product design at the moment, but I would recommend doing research and looking at global trends and emerging technologies. So what does that mean for UX design? The research means looking into how many people are in these positions now, as a percentage globally. Are these, have there been sites popping up? Are there jobs popping up? Have you recently heard a success story from a friend? These are all things that sort of represent a percentage of what's happening globally. So if out of 10 friends, 2 friends have got into IT, that must mean that IT is pretty much booming. It's not just a random situation happening just to you. Because it happens in one circle and it happens in another circle, and there you have it. Regarding global trends and emerging technologies, this really hits home when we're talking about IT. So everyone's really scared that IT might start falling at some point. And while I agree that some of the pay grades might plateau at some point, it really depends on what you bring as a specialist, obviously. If you're getting overpaid, your pay is probably going to get cut when there are more people that have the same skill sets as you. But with that in mind, all the technologies that are currently coming to light really reinforce product and UX design. So whether you're designing for VR, for AI, for Internet of Things, for anything that doesn't have an interface, you will still be using exactly the same skill set. The only difference will be that you won't be physically drawing an interface that will be shown probably on a mobile phone. It might still be an interface that's being shown virtually. It might be a series of experiences that you're making. So the concept of an interface is really sort of getting challenged as new technologies emerge. But UX, product, and design in general will always be there. So this links on to being future-proof. So having a global presence and being technology agnostic. This is exactly what I talked about a second ago. So you have this thing called Moore's law, where each year the sort of level of expertise and the level of achievements that we have in one niche doubles. So you all remember probably, I'm a kid of the 90s, so you all remember when we had the flash USBs that had 256 megabytes. So what can you fit on 256 megabytes? I have no idea, but this is Moore's law. So why does that have anything to do with UX? Exactly what I talked about a second ago. So if technology keeps progressing, it will obviously render some people and some career paths useless. But this will never, I think, happen to design. So design needs to be done from a human's perspective. There always needs to be someone that's looking out for the person that's using it. And this is not something that AI can do, that technology can do. You can obviously tweak, so there can be some analysis of this and then having the human tweak, but you need a human in the loop. What I mean by global presence is having a job that will allow you to move to Portugal like me, or maybe even work online, or work for people that speak a different language than you. All of this can be done in design. So what about UX and UI? So what's really hiding behind the abbreviations? So obviously it means user experience and user interface, but why do people keep interchanging these two things? What I have here on the right is a graph where you can see that the largest circle that we have here is user experience design. So when we see user experience design entailing all of these things here, and then when we see user interface design as a little piece of the puzzle, we can obviously see that these two things are not interchangeable. So what does this mean? When you look at this graph, you might be thinking, oh my God, if I'm being a user experience designer, Do I need to know architecture? Do I need to know sound design? Do I need to know motion design? Do I need to know all of these things in order to be a user experience designer? The short answer is no. So you don't need to know all of these things. You need to know how to draw an interface, but you will not need to know sound design. What this means is all of these things have experiences. So when you're going through architecture, you have an experience. When you're listening to things, that's an experience. When you're navigating through something, that's an experience. So all of these things can be linked back to experiences. The beauty of working as a UX designer is that you can choose, you can literally pick and choose where to sort of navigate your subset of skills. If it's going to be in IT for the start, obviously you'll be drawing and designing for computers, for mobiles, but that doesn't stop you working in architecture or working in industrial design or like designing ATMs or any other product that has an experience. I have a friend who developed a system for ordering in restaurants, and he worked for a few years for that company, and they were super happy to have a UX designer because he literally helped them get through everything. So, on that subject, everything that reaches your user is part of their experience, and this is what we call customer experience. So this is a new term. Customer experience entails all of these things and much more. So this is branding, this is products, marketing, strategy, customer support. So when I say customer support, imagine having a really pissed off customer support agent, and you're designing the best interfaces, and you have the leanest UX, and just the whole experience is seamless. People are really happy, and then they run into a problem and they call their customer support, and the customer support agent doesn't help them. They're locked out of their account, like I am with PayPal at the moment, if PayPal is watching this. But if your customer support agent is not doing you justice on a company level, then your customer experience will be bad. So this whole streamlined experience from the first touch or sight or smell that a user might have with your product or with your company up until the end of their usage, like the flow, is what we call customer experience. So this is a term that was coined by Don Norman. This user experience is a term that was coined by Don Norman, but he talked about products and the customer experience. So he was maybe the first to talk about this, and what he meant was that no product is an island. It can't exist by itself. The product is a cohesive, integrated set of experiences, and in order for it to be labeled as good, it needs to all work together seamlessly. So you can't do this without your team. So with that in mind, when we're talking about user experience and customer experience and user interfaces, if you remember the chart from a few slides ago, so we're not talking about this. It's not a union. It's not adjacent one to another. It's not overlapping. It is this. So user experience is part of the customer experience, and then the user interface is part of the user experience. So the UI is just one of the elements of what we're calling a product. Having in mind future-proof careers, what I've done here is I've gone into Google Trends and I've compared some of these terms that are now gaining traction. So I've looked at UX design, I've searched for UI UX, and I have done a search for product design. The time frame is 10 years. So this is like the 1st of February 2010, and this is a few days ago when I was creating this. So as we can see, the blue is UX. This means that people search for this on Google. So we can see that UX has really, really grown over the 10 years. It has, I would say, more than doubled. Yeah, it's more than tripled. So 25 times 3 is 75. So yeah, quite a lot of growth. When we look at product design is pretty much at the same average. Why is this? This is because product design entails sort of industrial design as well. It's not just the digital design that we were talking about previously. And then we have UI and UX design, which is sort of flat, still growing, but flat in comparison to UX design. This is what I was talking about regarding the interchangeability of these two terms. This can't be interchanged. So you should either be looking for UI or UX. So you either want to see what a UI element is, or you want to be searching for a user experience. So if you found yourself nodding at the previous section, it looks like UI and or UX design is a career path for you. And in the next steps, I'll try and sort of talk about this. Just a disclaimer, the stuff that I'm talking about now, it doesn't reflect 100% my career path. I obviously first got into what was called web design back then, and I started creating banners and was doing even front-end coding. At some point, I coded a few websites. So my path was a bit rockier than it can be today, just because I started years ago, and there weren't the courses and the resources, and I obviously didn't know what I was getting into. But that sort of gives you a bit of an idea of how much easier it is now to sort of access these things and try it out by yourself. You don't need any external validation. You could just try. So what I'm gonna do here is go through the bare essentials, or what I am calling bare essentials. So what do I mean by this? I'll go through tools, the mindset, deliverables, and how to sell yourself. So this is what I'm calling how. These are the things that I would recommend. So this is obviously not something on an industry level, nor is it written as a rule. These are just things that I have found would be easiest to use while getting into this field. So starting from a mindset, these are more like checkboxes rather than something you can actually go out and buy, or because these are pretty much soft skills. So I found that designers that are curious and are good communicators work in a more seamless fashion than designers that really don't need to get the solution to a problem. So what do I mean by this? When I say curious, so when you would look at a day-to-day experience, you would say, okay, for example, my mobile keeps showing me this push notification from Garmin. I have a Garmin watch. I don't know if you can see it here. And it constantly somehow links to my Bluetooth, and it shows me, do you want a pair? Are you pairing? What are you doing? Without me actually doing anything. So this really annoys me, and most people would just sort of ignore this. They would constantly swipe this notification and just hide until it goes away. But when I say curious as a designer, it would be good if you were the type of person that sort of wants to go in, investigate, search on websites, try and find the underlying issue, and then solve it. So this will just help you so much day to day, because your job is to constantly investigate. Apart from investigating, you need to really be a good communicator and a critical thinker. So these things are really linked. how are they linked? So imagine a different situation. You're at work and you're doing some testing on a product that you've done, and you have an interface. So you're showing the user an interface, they're clicking through it, and they're saying, oh yeah, this is good, but why did you put a checkbox here? I think that you can't see it, it's too small, the contrast isn't good enough, I think you should make it bigger and make the border a different color. So as a good communicator, obviously you need to somehow talk to this person and say, okay, why do you think that? And try and dig a bit deeper into the underlying sort of idea that the person has. So what they're telling you by saying it needs to be smaller, they're saying, I can't see it, and I think that I need to be able to see it off the bat, or I think that this thing should be shown first on the screen. And they're trying to sort of give you a solution to the problem. That's your job. So whenever someone tells you about the solutions, you pretty much need to ignore that and sort of dig deeper. So when you're doing critical thinking on people's opinions, however they might be sort of persuasive or have good points, you really need to understand what is the underlying problem of it. So the problem might be that you have different parts of the interface that are so loud and so strong and so out there with their colors or with their font sizes that this checkbox is not being viewed at all, that they can't see it. So the issue isn't with the checkbox, the issue is with the button or with whatever you've done, or you have a huge photo that when people land on the screen they can only see the photo. So that's that thing covered. Now regarding uncertainty, what I mean by this is that you will never get 100% set of things that you need to do. So if you're building a product that is, so you're building a website that's for sunglasses. The end user, not the end user, your client or maybe even your stakeholder, whoever you're talking to, will never tell you 100% what you need to do. There is a lot of things that you need to know based on experience, obviously, and a lot of things that you need to research about. So if you're doing sunglasses, go into the subject, like think about sunglasses. How do you represent sunglasses in the best way? What do people want to know when they're buying sunglasses? You can always influence the set of information that is being shown on the screen. So if you're not good with uncertainty, if you don't like the back and forth, that's going to happen quite a lot. So this is a really good product designer. He is a lighting designer, Italian, and he sort of coined the phrase, if you're not curious, forget about it. I think this is really important, and it's just like a one-liner about design. So I think that he would have been a really good UX and product designer if he just put his mind to it. So jumping onto the tools, how do you get started based on tools? I would recommend these 3 tools, not in any specific order. They're called Figma, Miro, and Whimsical. So I'll start with Miro. I probably should have put that as number 1 because that's what you should start with. So in Miro, you can create online sketches and you can create maps. So these are things that that you would need to start off with as a deliverable. So I'll go later into the tools, like the real subset of stuff that you'll have there. I have screenshots, but this is just an overview. So Whimsical is used for flowcharts and mind maps and other things. Flowcharts obviously are a process, so a visual representation of a process, and mind maps pretty much explains itself. And then in Figma, you can create interfaces and prototypes. So you might ask why I sort of selected these 3 tools. First of all, they're all free. You can just put your email in and sign up and you'll get a free account. Obviously you have constraints regarding the number of projects you can have, but you can use them you can use them like they don't have a trial, as opposed to, for example, Sketch, which would be the same tool as Figma. But for Sketch, you need to have a Mac and you need to have a license, and it's not that easy. And another thing is that Figma actually creates prototypes, where Sketch creates prototypes, but they're not that good. People usually use InVision, which you can still, which has a free trial as well. But I would recommend Figma just because it's a seamless experience. You can do everything in the same place. So let's dig a bit deeper into it. Figma, as I said, is super easy for mockups. So when I say mockups, obviously you need to start with wireframes, and for the beginning, you can do wireframes in Whimsical. Whimsical is good for that. It has like predefined elements that you can just drag and drop, and it's visually nicer than, for example, balsamic and things like that. Also, you can do it online, which is excellent. So Figma being super easy for mockups, that is actually the second step, and it's leading currently in comparison with Sketch. So, for example, my company is thinking of moving to Figma. So what Figma does better than Sketch, they both do like the same job. You can still draw, like everything can be done custom. You can see here at the right, you have these like inspect panels. You can drag, drop a line, reorder things, group them, like that. That's just the your bread and butter of design. But what Figma does is that you can actually see up the top right that multiple people can be in the same artboard. So this is a future-proof skill in the sense of when you learn Figma, you can actually use it in your company with your team. And obviously learning Figma will give you pretty much a really good sense of how to use Sketch as well, just in the case of the company using Sketch. So Miro. I love Miro. Miro is so cool. We've also used it quite often at Unbabble where I work. So what I've shown here is just a template of a customer journey map. So why do I love Miro? Miro is really a powerful tool. It has a lot of templates that you can use, and it also gives you the freedom of doing whatever you want in it. So you can put in like sticky notes, you can use the freeform tool, you can put in comments, multiple people can be there at the same time. The export works excellent, it gives you high resolution files, there's no fidgeting about it, it just gives you like a box that you sort of resize. And why did I show this as an example? Because for customer journey maps, there is no, first of all, customer journey maps are really good deliverable. So I'll explain them a bit later, but what Miro helps you do is focus on the content. So you already have the structure here, you just need to fulfill it. Jump in and put in your ideas, like connect everything, and you're finished. So the third tool is Whimsical. So I use this for mind maps and flowcharts and wireframes. The difference between Miro and Whimsical is that Miro can be collaborative, where Whimsical can't. Whimsical, I think you need to upgrade in order to have multiple people in the same project. So what I've done here is just I've started creating a mind map. Up the top here, you can select the different types of sort of inputs you want. You can select flowchart, you can select wireframe or a mind map. So when you click here on these elements, they sort of connect between each other, and also it's not fiddly. You can literally just focus on the content. There's no need to, one pixel left, one pixel right, move things around and lose a lot of time on the details. So the deliverables. What will you be creating in the tools above? So deliverables can sort of be segmented into three categories. Deliverables that are for research, that are design deliverables, and obviously for testing. So research, I put here the bread and butter are personas. So you obviously have a lot more. I've just narrowed it down to the things that I think someone would need to have now if they were creating a portfolio from scratch, a case study from scratch, and designs from scratch. So you would need to obviously do research and sort of find the problem that you want to solve, and then based on the problem, find your ideal persona, conduct user interviews. I don't have much time to go through these things now. That's for a different presentation, but you can research these things online. There's extensive information on this. You can get started quite quickly. But it's really important to validate your personas by doing interviews. So it really helps to talk to people. I recently helped my brother out on a project, and doing the interviews really gave you a sense of who would be using what you're thinking of designing, and really makes it all tangible and makes it all worthwhile. So if you're designing for a non-existing person that you're calling Bob, you don't feel it. But when you really meet a few people and talk to them either online or have them testing your product and see how they're having issues with things, it really brings the idea home. So obviously maps would be in research. Maps are just mapping out the current experience of a product or a current experience of a process, something that you've noticed out in the wild. So regarding design, obviously I have wireframes, mockups, and prototypes. For working, so when you're working, wireframes are really a nice to have. I'm talking out of experience. Not everyone wants to see a wireframe. People usually want to really jump in quickly, do mockups, iterate. So that can be really challenging for a designer, especially if you're schooled and you know that a wireframe is like, the basis. You sort of sketch it out. That's something that sort of leads to the mockups, that allows a lot of iteration. It allows you to, solve the problem in multiple ways. But from experience, when you're working in a company environment, this doesn't happen that often. So what I'm saying is that if you're creating a use case for the first time, if you're jumping into this for the first time, you want to try it out, you must do a wireframe. So this will really help you understand what lies under a mockup. So you will understand the skeleton of your idea. And the more ideas that you sort of chuck out through wireframes, even if they're just sketched by hand, you don't have to do them in Whimsical or in any other complicated program that you'll have to like drag and drop things. Sketching is one of the most important things, and it doesn't have to be nice. Like, my sketches are really ugly and I never use them afterwards. Like, I never show them to people. It's just a way of thinking. So once you're done with your wireframes, you transfer them to mockups. You sort of spruce everything up. You clean everything out that you don't need, and at the end you create a prototype. So prototyping is so important. I cannot stress that more. So when you create a mockup, a mockup is really static. You sort of have screen after screen after screen. They're sort of like all together. You're constantly comparing them, looking at them like, oh, am I missing this? Am I missing that? And then when you put it in a prototype, and you actually have to click on it. Mind you, you have apps now that will allow you to open prototypes on your mobile without doing anything special. So you can really test things out, and you can share it with other people, have people test it on them. So it really hits home how this stuff will be used. So when you create the prototype, it will allow you to iterate on the mockups that you've created. And obviously, the most important part is testing. Test early, test a lot. Testing really, really important. So once you do your wireframes, you can do testing, or when you do mockups, you can do your testing. Whatever phase is good for you, whenever you feel ready. But the more you test, the better your solution will be. So getting into UX maps, they will help you sort of describe the various aspects of a product. I think the most important thing for you guys might be a customer journey map or an experience map. So experience map is a bit wider than a customer journey map. An experience map is sort of like me walking down the street and wanting to throw my trash in a bin, and everything that happens along the way. So me unlocking the door, what happens here, what happens here. Where a customer journey map is really, you have a solution already, and you have created something, and you need to find the specific pain points of each of the dots within this process. So customer journey maps usually have like these smiley faces. So you'd put in smiley faces and you'd say, oh, the user is sad here, the user is happy here. So this is an example of the phases of the customer journey map. So you obviously have defining, comparing, negotiating, and selecting for this like as a global idea of what the different siluses you need to go through. So you've defined your person here, you defined your expectations, and then you're going through the different phases of the process and really trying to define what has happened here. I won't go into too much detail regarding this because you can find this online, and you have like literally templates that you can fill. So I'm just stressing it as something that is a great deliverable and will definitely help you. So the third part is really selling yourself. So you're a designer, you've done some use case, so you want to be a designer, you've done some stuff for your portfolio, and now you really need to sell yourself. So obviously making a portfolio is the first part. You need to get down the lingo. So what does the lingo mean? It means that you are talking like a designer. Really try and read anything you can get your hands on. There are, a lot of sites, like you can look at product sites, you can look at UX sites, you can look at patterns, like design patterns, and really try and read things, not just look at them. By getting the lingo down, you will be able to talk to other people about what you're working. So learn to talk about your designs. Another aspect of it is actually completing design tasks. So regardless of whether you're a good designer or whether your portfolio is strong or whatever, you need to be able to complete a design task. So all of the same processes that you would go through in creating a use case, you will probably need to do for a design task. Design tasks can be really boring. They can be like a set of data fields and then like create something, or they can be redesign this, or they can be don't redesign this, create this based on a story that they might tell you. There are books about this, and there is content online. So apart from applying to jobs and like getting your CV down and the motivational letter and everything, try and complete some design tasks beforehand. So give yourself mini sprints of like 2 days, 3 days, a week, depending what you take on for yourself. But try and do this before you actually need to do it. So practice. So I'll do a short product analysis of the IKEA experience. I'll just go through what we talked about and how you could do it. So as we all know, IKEA is a large furniture store. What I've got here is the Lisbon map, and where the closest IKEA is from Lisbon. The Belgrade one is pretty much the same distance away from Belgrade. So what is one of the key aspects of IKEA? So just talking it through. IKEA is always out of the city. Always, always, always. So we actually had a pop-up store in Belgrade, but it was, killed quite quickly. So that might mean something. That might mean that actually people were fulfilling their needs in the store, in the pop-up store in the center, and not visiting the big store. So have to listen to the company that you're analyzing. So we know that it's out of the city. We know that you usually need to go by car, and by car I mean you can go by bus, but how do you pull back the things that you've bought? I've always had trouble bringing back stuff, and I've always gone by some type of car or taxi or whatever could bring me there. So once you get to IKEA, you've come by car, so you obviously already have space in your car for things. So the space in your trunk does not play a role. So this is the first good checkpoint for IKEA, because they want you to buy as much as possible, and they don't want you to be thinking, oh no, I can't fit this in my car, or I can't bring this with me, it's too heavy, blah blah, because you will obviously already be planning for this. Another thing is that IKEA, IKEA is something that you plan. So going to IKEA, going to shop to IKEA is something that you plan for. You can't just, go in 5 minutes and be there and then quickly get back. So it'll take you, as we can see here, it takes you 13 minutes to actually get there. So it'll take you an hour to just get there, make a circle, and then come back, and that's like best case scenario. So IKEA knows that you're planning stuff, that you're coming prepared, and that you've probably looked at things online, and that you've probably come with someone. So you're not going to make this trip and make this like a long experience without coming with someone. So another thing that comes to you from this company is the product, so the marketing. How do they market themselves? This is a really good example. So love is complicated, IKEA is simple. They're trying to represent their brand image as something that's simple, that's easy, that's useful, that solves problems. So when you look at these two things that I've talked about, so analyzing the product as a whole, like the location and how they sort of make out of the location part of the experience and part of the product, and combine that with marketing, that is already one whole section of the customer experience, what we were talking about a second ago. So combine that with the in-store experience, you already have like a really good product experience. Regardless of the fact that you might have actually gone to the website in the meantime. So what is the IKEA store experience? All of you know this. I'm sure you've either been to IKEA or you know about it. You've heard people talk about it. So the fact is that the showroom is not something that you can go through easily. So I recently went to IKEA here, and I wanted to do just an in and out. So I literally had a list of things that I wanted to buy. I knew where they were. And yet again, I managed to buy maybe 30% more things than I actually listed, than I actually needed, and that I was actually ready to pay for. So that's good. From IKEA's perspective, they're actually making this experience strong enough for you to actually buy more things. So they're doing a good job. Then obviously the other part of the experience is a self-serve furniture area. So remember, when you go back down, it's usually underneath IKEA. So up the top you have the showroom, and then you go down and you have the self-service area. So you just have heaps and heaps of rows of boxes. So there's pretty much nothing that that allows you to sort of not go into the showroom and just go into the self-serve area unless you know exactly what you're buying. So they're trying to eliminate people going into the self-serve furniture area and make them go into the showroom if they're not 100% sure what they're buying. And when are you 100% sure what you're buying? You're never 100% sure what you're buying. So here is what we would call a projected image and the actual customer experience. So the projected image is, oh, I'm just going to have some beautiful little meatballs, and I'll get the little flag in it, and it's going to be great. I'm going to buy furniture and eat there and then go home. And then you come to IKEA and you see these lines. This also happened to me. So there was such a long line that I ended up giving up and just, battling out hunger and just ignoring it. So this is another really important thing in a product analysis. So this is exactly what you can analyze. So you can analyze the experience of, for example, eating in IKEA. You see this line here, it swerves. So it goes first to the front, and then it goes to the back, and then you arrive at the part where you get like, I think you get like the fruit first and the drinks, and all the little things in the shelves. And then after a few shelves like that, you arrive at the food. So you're already putting things on your plate before you've arrived at the food. This is a problem statement that you can use to create a use case. So just the experience of buying food can be a good enough and wide enough subject for product analysis. So you can look at how long it takes, how they've created this product experience, what you buy first, why would you want to buy that first, is there any psychology behind it, and then when you sort of do the analysis, you can go into the details of what the issue is. So you're saying the lines are too long. How would you circumvent this? How would you solve the issue of the lines at IKEA? So your hypothesis might be, so if I'm coming to IKEA and I know I'm going to IKEA, maybe online while I'm creating my list of products that I want to buy, maybe I can order things, order food in advance and just come and pick it up, like I pick up everything else, and like have a time slot where I'd pick things up. Would this maybe circumvent the time frame? And then obviously testing this might be a bigger issue. So I would recommend for the start of maybe going through an interface. But this is a really, really, really good example, and like whoever is in these waters would really love it if you sent this for an interview. People would be really excited to look at this. So this is another problem. And I think they've sort of solved this one. So on the left you have what you think is gonna happen at IKEA and what actually happens. So you think you're just gonna stroll around, buy stuff, and then get the hell out. But what happens is you come to the lines and then you wait for like an hour in the lines, and you actually have these stacked products that are really random. So you can probably buy like a toilet brush or something, like really near the where you're going out of the store. So this is another trick that IKEA probably uses. They don't actually want to solve the lines in IKEA. They want you to buy more stuff, just as the supermarket wants you to buy chocolates by the time you get to the checkout. So this could be another thing that could be solved in the IKEA experience. So what next? Once you get a job, and once you sort of jump into this stuff, it's not enough to just stay complacent and stay where you are. You need to keep striving. So I would recommend looking at this video by Casey Neistat. It's called The Values of Work. What he's explaining here is that your value needs to keep growing as you go forth through time. So it's not enough to just get a first job and then start working. You get 3 years in, and then you arrive at a sort of comfort plateau. When you start plateauing, no job will help you. So no job will be future-proof enough for you to not keep striving. So you need to keep yourself updated. You need to keep learning. You need to want what you're doing. You need to want to keep that the education and the skills on an industry level. So this is a really complicated graph, but I just wanted for the end to talk a little bit about the emerging technologies. So coming back to why design is future-proof. This is one of the leading companies in analysis and data and statistics. It's called Gartner, if I'm saying that correctly. And what they've shown here is the different new sort of emerging technologies that have arrived in 2019. So I sort of took out the three that might be most important for designing. And they can be segmented into three. So sensing, mobility, augmented human, and advanced AI and analytics. So sensing and mobility, this is sort of the core of the Internet of Things. We are one step away from having the Internet of Things totally throughout our house. So we have light bulbs now, we have, you know, Alexa, you have the wearables, and then that sort of jumps into the augmented human. Currently, chips are really being tried out, like, and implemented into people. So personification, AI, and immersive workspaces. So this can all be designed. Everything. Just like you would design for voice recognition, an experience is an experience throughout all of these emerging technologies. And the third part is natural language processing, facial recognition, and autonomous navigation. So that's like Tesla. NLP is something that I'm working on right now. We're building the world's translation layer. So even though you'd think that translation isn't something you can design, we are designing it. So that's it from me. I hope you got some value out of this. I put up some books here that I think are good for kicking off. You can find them online, you can buy them, Amazon has them. And I would like to open up the floor for Q&A. If people have questions, I would gladly answer them. You can add me on LinkedIn. So for the Q&A, just put the questions in the YouTube. I can read them here. I should be able to read them here. I've heard that there's a delay, so I can't see them right away. But you can add me on LinkedIn. I'm LinkedIn/Lana-Lonkar. And for all questions related to Brainster, you can ping Anya at this email address if you have any questions regarding their courses, because I don't know much about their courses right now. But I might explain some of these books while I'm waiting if there are any questions coming in. So the first book is called No Interface is the Best Interface. This book is really about designing a product. So when you're designing a product, not the best solution is an interface. The experience that you're designing can be a multitude of things, and it doesn't necessarily have to be an interface. So have a look at that if you're into that. Then the second one is Steve Krug's Don't Make Me Think. This is just, you know, a staple, a classic. I would really recommend that one. That's maybe one of the first books that I read. Designing interfaces has really practical, examples and text. So in order to, Bisera's just sending me a message that I have questions, but I can't find them. Okay, got it. Did you study UI, UX, or are you self-taught? And did you move to Portugal because of the job, or you moved and later got the job? Obrigada. Obrigada. As I said, I studied architecture, and yes, I'm self-taught. I actually didn't finish a course. I would have loved to have finished the course and sort of not had to go through all the trouble that I did in like digging things up by myself. it was a good experience. I mean, I learned a lot. You learn a lot when you're learning by yourself, when you're digging, when you're analyzing, when you're really invested in it. So regarding a job, yeah, I moved here because of the job. I didn't really want to move. I didn't have the idea of like, oh, I need to move out of Serbia like a lot of people do. I really like this company, and I met them. I was at a conference here last year. It's called Web Summit. Web Summit's not that interesting from a design perspective, but it's cool in the sense of selling yourself. So you learn how to sell yourself, you learn how to talk about yourself, you talk to a lot of people who talk in English, and sort of like practice these things. And yeah, that's pretty much, I came here and then I was recruited by them, and the rest is history. So Petar is asking the difference between product and UX and UI design. Well, as I said at the start, I'll just flip back through this stuff because I think that I might not have hit home regarding these things. So user interface design is a subset of user experience design. So user interface is just one of the things that you do as a user experience designer. So if this was user interface, and then this is UX, and then this is product, and then this is CX. So they're all pretty much nested one under the other. When you're working as a product designer, you need to really work wider than you would as a UX designer. What do I mean by that? So I really, on a day-to-day basis, talk a lot with product managers, with engineering managers. I talk a lot with back-end developers. So it's not enough just to know to design. You need to understand the back-end, the front-end obviously, but you need to know a bit of back-end. And you need to know, on one hand, the product requirements, so what the company wants to make, and then what you can make. And then sort of connect the two. No one does it for you. When you're a product designer, you're the one that's connecting these two things and then validating it. As a UX designer, you're pretty much analyzing current situations and fixing them and doing like new work. And you don't have to worry about what the business thinks about what you're doing, because someone does it for you. So yeah, I think I've pretty much answered that. So Stefan says, do you think that the demand for UX professionally will continue to increase despite recent events? Okay, so if by recent events you mean COVID and the recession that will probably follow, or that is already following, yes, for sure. So I'll flip back through to this. Internet of Things or augmented human, like these things are not going to go away. Tesla is not going to stop creating cars, and Tesla's just the tip of the iceberg. So I imagine that soon, when I say soon, I'm talking about in years, but we should all have like self-driving cars. So a self-driving car is an experience by themselves. So you might not be designing interfaces in 20 years, but you will definitely be designing the experience. Yeah, that's my answer. So Maya asks, if UX design started in 2017, I don't know why UX design in 2017. I don't think it didn't start in 2017. What was the previous position for customer experience? I mean, how was customer feedback created? So UX design exists like from ages ago. Not exactly sure when, but when it wasn't called UX design, it was psychology. So psychology exists from forever. So customer feedback pretty much, I think, was based on literally them telling the companies. So feedback is currently done in the same way. It's just that UX design is proactive. So now the market is strong enough that you actually need to proactively seek out how the customer is experiencing what you're doing and whether you're doing a good job. I think previously that the market was obviously smaller and you can get away with a lot more. Now, since the market is much more competitive, the need for proactively seeking out what a customer needs has gotten even more value. And you know, there will always be a marketplace, there will always be money, there will always be people buying and selling things, and in this process there will be design, because you need to be able to keep people happy. And in order to keep them happy, you need to make the experience seamless. So I see these things as totally interconnected. So Monica asked for the books. I'll put the books up here again. Okay, so next, do you think having a knowledge in front end is bare necessity, which seems to be the case in Macedonia particularly? They usually put HTML, CSS as requirements. Okay, so the companies that put CSS and HTML as a requirement, so there could be two possibilities behind this. Either they want to know that you build stuff that you design things that people can build, or it's not a company that you want to work for. If they want you to code, the design that you're making, you don't want to work there, unless you want to obviously do front end. But sometimes people write it down just to address the fact that you need to be drawing buildable things. In order to draw buildable things, you need to have a basic understanding of how front end works. What I mean by that, so you need to know that you can't overlap things. For example, you just can't. Like that for a front end developer is really hard. He needs to fix things manually and sort of make them stay there. I'm not talking about like images overlaying images. I'm talking about like boxes over boxes and having that on the interface, and then having that like responsive, just in that sense. So what I would tell you is that have a look-see at front end. It will not be a minus for sure, but it should not be a requirement at all. It is not a requirement. So Angel, sorry if I got that wrong. Hi Lana, let me know please what you think about Adobe XD versus Figma. So Adobe XD is good. I haven't personally used it for any projects. I've had a look-see, obviously, because I'm curious. But I think Figma is really driving the market at the moment. So they're really doing cutting-edge stuff, and the fact that you can do it online and that it's collaborative, I think, is the biggest selling point for Figma at the moment. So if you're already doing Adobe XD, that's cool. Continue doing Adobe XD. These are all just tools. If you know how to design, if you've already started doing these things, your skills are applicable in each tool. You can learn the tools pretty quickly. If you know one, like the same concepts apply to the other ones. So my recommendation is don't focus too much on tools. You need to know one. But really try and get into design rather than getting into the technicalities of learning 20 tools that people are asking for. Oftentimes the things that people put on job descriptions are not well thought through. They've been written by the wrong people. A lot of the company might not be aligned with it, or the designer might disapprove of it that's currently working there. So, take it all with a grain of salt. When I was, applying for jobs initially, I would always apply to jobs where I thought the company was doing a good job. And then afterwards, through the communication with the company, I would try and see where these things came from. So I'd ask, why did you put this? What do you think about this? So does your designer code, or do you think a designer needs to code? So these are telltale signs of whether it would be a right fit for you. that's all the questions that I'm getting here. Let me just refresh for a second. Whoa, more questions. Okay, wait. Okay. Hi, Lana. If one decides to move to another country in the EU and work as a UX designer, is it required to learn the language of the particular company, or will English suffice? Thanks. I've seen, like, in Germany that they've asked for a basic knowledge of German, but I think it's more, this question is more of a question about culture. So if you really want an international company, if you would really like to feel at home, so it's not the question of getting a job. Once you get the job, you actually have to work with those people. You have to communicate daily. So if people are talking to you, for example, if I came here and all my colleagues were talking in Portuguese, and I was standing next to them, I wouldn't feel good and I would feel excluded, regardless of what they're talking about. So it really depends on the company. Here, I don't need to know Portuguese to talk there today. I speak in English, and the company is really international. Everyone speaks in English constantly, and whenever you enter a room or where someone might have been speaking Portuguese, they always switch, regardless of whether you need to be in the conversation or not. I've heard that, Germany in general, that they have that they sometimes can, move on to speaking in German a bit more. But I've also heard good things, especially in Berlin. People seem to be open there and good with English. So, yeah, long story short, you're good with English. It really depends on the company. So Peter says, what is better? Do you prefer to create one psychology test for a product and post it online, promote it, or physically communicate with the users? I like to communicate with the users. So I like to create a smaller set of tests where I have direct interaction with the people. It obviously depends what you're testing. If you're just doing a usability test, like a basic usability test, you can use the user testing sites or whatever they're called, and sort of let people click through it, and that will give you a good sense of whether what you've built, what you've designed, is usable in that sense. But really, if you want to know in detail what they think about it, what's driving them to do things, I like to talk to people directly. Obviously, sometimes you don't have access directly to people. Sometimes you either the users are too hard to find. In that case, try and find someone that's as close as possible and do as much usability testing as possible, and then maybe see when you launch how it goes. But if you're working in a company, the company will give you access to the users. I think that's only in the case of when you're trying to test it out by yourself and you don't maybe have access to CEOs of large companies. So you're not going to be able to find these people online. But you can find people that have the same subset of knowledge, like business knowledge and like relatively young, or whatever you're looking for. So I think that you can, tone it down a bit and try with the minimal viable product regarding that. Shall we strive to become just UX or just UI, or do they always go hand in hand? So yeah, I pretty much covered UI UX relationships. I can show that again here just in case it didn't hit home. So UI is a skill that you know when you're doing UX. What I mean by this is, yes, you need to know UI in order to practice as UX designer, but there are no jobs, I think, that you're just a UI designer. In order to just get a job as UI designer, you would need to be working at quite a large company, that has a really, really big team of designers, and then you'd probably be an intern. But even if you were an intern in a huge company, you wouldn't be doing just UI. You would be working on a smaller like component or part of a page, or maybe even a whole page. But you would be looking at it in terms of UX as well. It wouldn't just be UI. So you'd be honing both skills together. These things really go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. So yeah, I think that's about it for today. Thanks guys for joining. It was a pleasure talking to you. I hope you learned something, and have a great rest of the evening. Signing out.